Hello, hello everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to your video creative challenge. Here, rounding out to the end of the show. I'm Evan Abrams, and today we are going to be creating a dynamic 3D title sequence using Premiere, Adobe Premiere, most wonderful video editing software we have. But we're also going to be jumping a little bit, well, a lot of a bit, into After Effects. If you're not familiar with After Effects, the kind of cousin to Premiere, don't worry. I know it can be intimidating. We're only going to look at a little slice of it, and we can do some amazing things. So please stick with me. Come with me on a journey. We're gonna go places. It's gonna be great. Let's see. I see a lot of great people hanging out with us in the chat here. We got Steve. We got Laura. We got we got Misha in here, and of course, Annika holding it down. Thank you for keeping it real with us, keeping things moderated. It's fantastic. And yeah, this is going to be great. This is going to be a good time. If you have any questions, if you're watching this live and you have questions, let me know in the chat. If you're watching this on YouTube, please come over to Behance so I can see all of your lovely questions if you have troubles, because we want to help you out. All right, let's have a look at my screen. Let's have a look at what's going on. Let's have a look at what we're doing. All right, so I'm going to jump into that screen. Here we go. So if you've not seen the preview, we're going to go ahead. I'll just play you through here on the timeline. We have these wonderful mountains. The word mountains. In the mountains, it does what it says on the tin, and we have titles that appear as if they hang directly in the footage. They're right there. They're right there in the space, and we can enjoy them exactly where they are. It's fantastic. So what we're doing is we are going to be using a little bit of After Effects to sort of read what happened in the footage so that we can then enjoy turning that into data and then placing things in the scene, and it's going to be wonderful. So let's get our process started. Hey, Reverb Mike, no, you will not need 3D glasses for this. The illusion is entirely non-stereoscopic. Now, that being said, 3D glasses, I'm going to write that down for a later tutorial. I think that'll be a good one. All right, so to get started, if you want to get started with this, please download the starter files. They are in the description below. And when you finish, when you make something, we want to see it. Share it with us on the Discord, and tag EC Abrams, tag me on Discord, and I'll find you on there. All right, so where do we get started? How do we begin something like this? Well, we should begin with a simple line edit. So here you can see I've got the footage just basically laid out, hanging out here on the timeline. All right. And if you want to grab similar footage, please check out Adobe Stock. Check out the free category of things on Adobe Stock. These footages are free for us to enjoy. They're available, licensed to you. Enjoy them. And I've done a little bit of work on the footage. All right. So if I were to start this from scratch, I would take my footages, say 1, 2, 3, selecting them all, holding down Shift, and I'm just going to drag them all. I'm going to drag them all onto the Create New Sequence button here, which will create a sequence that is actually named for one of those clips. And I might select it and I'll rename it Sequence or Title or something like that so you can know exactly what it is. And I would go through and I would want to start trimming these clips down. Right, so we might go ahead and we might grab one of these, say this one here, which if we played it through, if you play this thing through, it's going very slow. So you might say, well, I need this to be a little bit more dynamic, so I'm going to right click on it and I might go down into, here we'll find perhaps time interpolation. Maybe we want to adjust its speed, right? So let's see, we want to come down here to speed/duration. That's what we're looking for. So if we go ahead and we hit that, we can then adjust the speed of the clip if we want. So let's make the speed 200%. It'll go twice as fast. And now if we play the clip through, you're going to see it's moving a little bit more, right? It's less floaty. So hopefully that's going to be good. All right. Now, what we're going to do here is maybe we want to look at some of these. Let's look at this one. And maybe instead, the drone, you're flying into the valley and you want to fly out of the valley, you could also right click on it. You can go to that speed duration and you can actually reverse the speed. You can do all kinds of interesting speed ramping stuff. The other thing that we can do, we can simply trim the clips down. We're just trimming the start and end, getting them into the arrangement that we want. Okay. And what we want to do is we want to just make sure that we've cut this to exactly what we want. as a sequence, right? We want to make sure that this is specifically in the order and exactly trimmed down to only the amount of the clips that we want to use. All right. Now, this is really critical because whenever we're doing effects work, we don't want to bring in more of the footage than we really need, because we're going to be just piling on more stuff that we don't want to work with. All right. So once you've got your timeline pretty well figured out, and I'm going to go to the line edit that I prepared earlier. It's a little bit like a cooking show. And so that we can kind of play through, and I'll talk you through kind of the idea behind arranging these clips in this way. So what I wanted to do is to think about a journey, right? We're pushing in, we're pushing forward on this one. This one here is now orbiting, but still moving forward. And then we're going to counter that with moving backwards. So it's a little bit of a sequence, like in, out, has a bit of a rhythm to it. The timing of it, it's a little bit soft, it's a little bit slow, but we want to sort of have the first two have a bit of a harmony, and then the next one has this kind of longer beat that we would stick on, right? So wait for, hello, good to see you. Oh, and Gareth Hanks. Hello, Gareth Hanks. Hey, Gareth, you're right. I usually stream on Fridays here on Behance, but I've been taking a bit of a break. It's summertime. So let's say you've got your clips laid out exactly the way you want them, right? So this is exactly how you want it. This is great. And now we just want to insert titles in there. We only want to insert titles in here. Perfectly easy thing to do. What we're going to do is, before we do anything crazy, I'm going to take these clips, I'm going to hold down Option on the timeline, and I'm going to drag them up. So what I've done is I've created a duplicate of those footage elements up on top of the others. So if you think about V1 down here, video track 1, think of this as the prepared elements that we've got exactly the way we want. And then these ones up top are going to be replaced. We're going to replace those with the affected clips. That way, we can always sort of toggle back and forth. We're not losing anything, right? We're not being destructive with our timeline. We're being very safe. And then we are simply going to replace these clips with the affected ones. So that's kind of the methodology I want you to think about when we're working. Another thing you should think about is maybe we even cut these a little bit longer than we might want. So if you pay close attention to our timeline here, I'm going to zoom in on the timeline. I'm just going to scrunch in. You can see here that on this clip, right, we don't have little triangles on the end of it. But if you look at this first clip, we do have a little triangle on it. Now, what this triangle means is that is the end of the clip. That is the hard bracket at the end. So there's no more footage on either side of it. And we are going to be replacing these with After Effects compositions. And when we do, you're going to see those little triangles show up. So what am I talking about replace with After Effects composition? Well, I currently have After Effects open. So I've got that open right here. I'm prepared. We're getting ahead of it. If you don't have it open, don't worry, because when you right-click on any footage element and you go up to Replace with After Effects Composition, your computer will then open, it will prompt you to open After Effects. If this is grayed out, if you don't see this, it is most likely because you don't have After Effects installed, and I would recommend coming into your Creative Cloud, coming into your apps, getting as many of these apps installed as you can. Always. But come into video and let's go ahead and make sure you have After Effects installed. All right. So just something to think about as you get into this. All right. I'm always out here pushing After Effects on people. So again, any clip, any element, right click on it, and we're going to say replace with After Effects composition. We're just going to give that a click. Now it's opened up After Effects. It's moved it in here. And now we're looking at the exact same thing. And I'm just going to isolate this. I'm going to grab these two elements. You can see they're highlighted. I'm going to put them in their own bin here so that we can keep ourselves nice and organized, right? And this is, I'm just going to rename this show elements, the things that we did on the show. Now, notice that it's created a composition in here that is called 01 3D title sequence linked comp 04. Ooh, it's a mouthful, right? But if we tab back to Premiere, notice what's changed on this timeline. On this timeline, now this one has become a pink clip, and it is, of course, named 01 3D title sequence linked, etc., right? So this has been replaced. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that anything that I modify about this clip or this composition entirely will be reflected as soon as I hit save. So for example, I might just grab an effect on here. I'm going to grab the colorama effect and apply it onto here. So now it's nice and rainbowy. I'll hit save. I'll return here to Premiere. And would you look at that, our change, whatever we've done, has modified over here, right? So just keep that in mind, that anything that we change, we hit save, it's going to update back here. All right. So let's return. Let's come back to After Effects. All right, we're going to remove that colorama thing. And what we want to do is we want to perform a tracking function in here, because what we want to do is extract three-dimensional data of a clip. In fact, we want to do it for all of the clips, but let's focus on one clip at a time. Take these things one clip at a time. So we're going to go Window, Tracker. So we're going to pull up our trackers, our various tracking informations, various automations we can do, and make sure that you have this particular layer selected, this video layer selected, and I'm going to say Track Camera. Now the rest of the process is fairly automated, right? That it's going to analyze in the background. Now what does that mean? What are we analyzing? Well, After Effects is looking at all 109. Oh, it went very quickly. I have a faster computer than I'm used to, so I don't get enough time to talk about the process. But notice it's populated all these bright, beautiful little flowers out in the world, right? These are all little points of contrast that After Effects has found out in our footage, and it's able to stick little points out there, hundreds of them. There's hundreds of little points out there in the world. And in fact, not only has it found some over here, but it's decided to stick some way back here as well. This is really important. Whenever you're tracking footage, as long as we have points in background, points in foreground, and After Effects can understand the relationship as they move, that's going to give us a good solve. Now, a solve is just figuring out what happened to the camera. It's like a detective working backwards, right? What happened? Where did it go? How did it move? What was happening? So it has an average error of 0.10 pixels. That's very good. Very good. We want to have an error that is below 1. Anything above 1 will probably be noticeable in an HD footage like this. So it's also decided that it's going to use a typical solving method. Now that means a handheld flying through space type of deal, right? Now we could instead say to this thing, hey, this is a tripod pan. So if the type of shot was indeed a camera on a tripod and it's just turning around on that tripod, that ball head movement, we should tell it that up front so that we don't confuse the machine with what has happened. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, yes, indeed, typical. That is correct. Sometimes the auto detect doesn't get it right? So you want to be able to tell it something. If things don't work out, you can also ask for a detailed analysis, which will just place more points out in the scene. And the shot here is a fixed angle of view, as in there's no zooming that has happened. The more information you can tell the program, the more likely it is that it's going to work out. All right. But we have points, we have data. Our average error is very small. So it's working out. We're getting there. And what we want to do, let's just place something in the scene as a test. All right. So as you can see, when I hover out there in the world, we get like a tiny little target that's out there in the space, right? So if I were to click out there, you see it selects these 3 points and it's made a little target that seems to sit out in the world, right? It seems to sit out in space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click out there. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say, hey, let's create a solid and a camera. So let's go ahead and do that. All right. So we're going to say create solid and camera. There is our wonderful solid out in the world. And I'm just going to press play, right? We're just going to play through this and see how it looks. It looks like someone has put a big pink tarp out in the mountains. And it looks like it is sticking in the right place. It looks correct out in the space. So that tells me that we've done a pretty good job, that this is a pretty solid track. We have good data to work with, which should give you the confidence to move forward with any kind of visual effects work that you're about to do. And make no mistake, these are indeed visual effects. So the next thing we want to do is put some 3D text out there. All right. So if you've not used After Effects before, we're just Reverb mic cracking me up. Thank you for doing me a solid. All right, so I'm going to grab the text tool up here. You can call it up by hitting Command T, and we're just going to type anything out in the world, right? This could be the title of something. This could be like directed by. This could be all kinds of stuff, right? And let's see. Let's use active, maybe active grotesque of some form. Let's get really grotesque with it. Active grotesque bold perhaps, and I'm just going to make the text white for now. So nice bold white text. All right, and right now the text is a two-dimensional layer, so it can't really be interacted with in regards to the various 3D things that are happening around it. So what we're going to do is simply toggle this button here to make it three-dimensional. All right, and right away it jumps away from us. Now why is it doing that? Okay, so if I twirl down into this layer, you're going to see that this has a lot of properties. I'm going to twirl into transform, and we're going to see even more properties, more and more and more. And After Effects believes, and rightly so, that this object here lives at 956, 5 whatever. That's the address that it lives at. And remember, we created a virtual camera in the space that is looking at a virtual scene. So it just happens to not be looking exactly at that object. And in fact, if I scrub through, you'll see that we kind of fly by that text. So we want to move this text to be in the right place, right? Oh man. So if we wanted to slip this text behind, so I'm just getting into some of the comments here. If we wanted to kind of slip this text to seem like it's behind these mountains, a chroma key might not get us there. We would probably have to do some masking, perhaps some roto work. Stay tuned for tomorrow. We're going to be doing roto work then, and it's going to be great. But we're going to take this text and we need to push it roughly where we want it. So if you hover over, you can see I can hover over the various arrows. I can grab this Z arrow and I can push this way back in space. Whee! Away it goes. And you see now it feels like it's hovering further back. One thing that's very challenging about things in this space, right, is that we don't really have a basis for where things are, right? We've automated this process of creating the zone, right, creating the virtual world, but we don't really have a reference point, which is why it's helpful to have a tracked solid like this, where I can call up its position. I could copy that position and I could paste it to the position of our text. So now the text is at least living there. And if that's pretty close to where I want it, that's a pretty good starting point for us to work from. So now I might scale this up, and I'm toggling things like scale by hitting S, position by hitting P, just so I can save having so many things kind of open out there in the world, right? And now this is roughly in the right place. We need to give ourselves a little bit of help sometimes to get this into the right place. And there we go. I think that we've got this kind of hanging out here, right? This is in the place. So I'm just going to go ahead and say like, I don't know, 3D titles, exclamation point, right? I'll just make that a little bit larger maybe. So it really feels like it's hanging out, like it's really hanging out here. Okay. Now remember, we're just going to hit save. We're going to return to here. Our changes will all be updated, right? And you can see that we've got one of our shots almost done. We're almost done. I'm going to warn you though, have a look here, that this block of footage is red up here in our render bar, right? So you may need to, if you want to preview this in real time, hit enter so that it renders the stuff, and now the bar is green, and we'll be able to play it back in real time in the context of our Premiere project, okay? Now, let's return to After Effects here. Let's put some more finishing touches on this. Let's get this looking a little bit better here in this space, right? So first off, we don't really need to see this tracked solid. It's nice that it's there, but I'm going to poke this little eye here, boop, and now we don't have to see it. It's invisible to us. And the other thing I want to do, let's make this maybe a little bit larger, right? A little bit larger like this. As long as it never interferes with the line of the forest here, we'll be able to maintain the illusion that it's hanging out in the space, right? It's all tricks. It's all illusions. We're a bunch of magicians pulling rabbits out of hats. As long as no one sees the wires, we're all good. So the next thing I want to do is try to harmonize the colors a little bit. Now, if you're someone who does your color grading, your color correcting inside of Premiere, I would recommend that in Premiere, you do all of that color work on an adjustment layer that would live above these other layers, right? So we might go ahead and I'm going to create a new adjustment layer and hit OK on that and place that out above things just so you can kind of see how that would look. So I'll just extend that out. So now any adjustments that we might perform using maybe the Lumetri color, etc., will wash down into the other clips. But that means that what we should do within this file is make sure that any text, any sort of virtual elements, any VFX elements are harmonized with this footage plate in here. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to, instead of being totally whited out, I'm going to take this eyedropper and I'm going to pick something that's bright out in our scene. In fact, I think these clouds back here are probably a great example. I'm going to just click on those and I'm just going to access by clicking on our text color here. And you can kind of see that we've bumped on saturation a little bit, and the hue has remained, pretty standard, but we've bumped a little bit off of baseline, right? But what we're just doing is harmonizing these titles a little bit with the color information that we find in the scene where they are. In fact, you might even want to say, oh, let's sample off of these rocks back here, right? Which darkens them out a little bit, but you can come into the color and maybe we could, take their saturation down a little bit, and we'll take their brightness and push it up a little bit. Just so that, as you can see, there's no purely white elements in this scene, right? And so it doesn't really make that much sense unless you're going for a much more abstracted and contrasted look to have purely white elements in the scene as well. So just some thought around that. Now, we're going to come into the effects and presets over here, which is where we can put lots of interesting effects. So many, too many to name, right? And we are just going to come in here and we're going to search for a bevel. We're going to find perhaps a bevel edges and apply that. No, bevel edges isn't going to do it. Let's do a bevel alpha instead and drag that out onto either our titles here or drag it out onto the layer down here. All right, so we're going to do that. Another thing you can do is with the layer selected, double click on the effect, and that's going to come in here. All right. So what we've got is this thing here now has little beveled edges on it. I'm going to toggle this off and on so you can see the difference. And it's just a slight amount of a beveling, little bit of a beveled edge to it, just to give it a little bit of contrast on either side, right? And we might even bring the light intensity down a little bit. Ooh, let's make it even thinner than that, like that. But just to give it a little bit, just a little soupçon in the corner there, so that will kind of blend in with the rest of the stuff, right? So we've done it. We've got titles in the space. Hit save. The other thing that I would recommend you consider, if you are going to be dropping titles, you're going to be dropping 3D titles in, this is fine, right? This is fine, but these are all set to normal. I'm going to toggle our switches and modes, and you can see here we've got the mode, down here. We're just set to normal. And if we change this to something like overlay, right? If we change this to something like an add, and then we work the opacity, which I'm toggling by hitting the T key. Oh, sorry, my voice. Or you can twirl open and you can bring that opacity down a little bit. You just get a little bit more interesting color interactions that you might not otherwise get, right? And it gives us these kind of subtle changes. But again, we're going to hit save. We're going to return to Premiere, and we've got that shot wonderfully done here in the midst of other things. Now I'm going to have a peruse at the finished version that I'd worked on. Oh, actually, that media has gone offline. Let's actually look at all you're going to have to do for the rest of your shots. You're just going to repeat the same process. So you're going to grab footage, you're going to bring it, you're going to replace with After Effects composition. In fact, let's do another one. I think we've got just enough time for me to try a second one here for us. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to grab one of these, we're going to right click on it, we're going to replace with After Effects composition, just so you can see how quickly this can go. I'm going to get it in here. We are going to call open our tracker, and we're going to say track camera. Now, here's the other kind of important thing to remember. This may fail, right? And if this does indeed fail, then we need to start thinking about what we have to do to change the footage a little bit to make it work for us. Okay. Now, in this case, I know that this shot fails because we time remapped it inside of Premiere. So what you can always do is just bring that raw clip in here, right? You can import from source, from wherever you pulled it, right, in the world, bring it in here, do all of the work in here, and then import the .aep file into Premiere and select that composition. Now, we're coming into the end of it, so I want to thank you all so much for coming in here and for hanging out with me and for seeing how to make these 3D titles. It wasn't so scary. It wasn't so bad. You know, we spent a little bit of time in Premiere and then, you know, a lot of time in After Effects, so I hope that was comfortable for everybody. If you end up making something with this, we want to see it. I want to see it not only on the footage we provide, but grab some of your own footage. We want to see what you can do with your own footages, with stuff that you filmed. Place things into the space, place them into the scenes. Try it with text. Try putting JPEGs or PNGs in here. You can put anything in here that you'd like, right? Now, the other thing that I want to say is when you share it with us on Discord, please tag me, EC Abrams, in it. I want to see what you make. I want to see what you do. And, oh, look at this. Oh, flawlessly. Look at all these points. Look at all these points. We got to pay attention to our average. Look how small that average error is. Look at that beautiful average error. I'm just going to create text in a camera out there in the space. And I'm going to type on here. Thanks for watching. Hanks for watching, I suppose. As we fly back, it's like we just graffito tagged it all over on the side of the mountain here. So I hope that was good. Deface landmarks in video only. Don't do it in real life. But now we have the ability to put things in the space as if they live there. So I hope that was good. Okay, that brings us to the end of it. Thanks again for watching. I'm Evan Abrams. This is sort of the end of the show around here. So join us tomorrow, and hopefully we see you there. Bye for now.